So, if you were watching this video, you are starting off your Gods, Gladiators, and Empire Classics 340 course, and I welcome you. I'm so happy you're here. I'm really excited to be teaching this course, and I have this goal. I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but I've realized that I start literally every video that I record for school with, "All right, welcome back," or something along those lines. And so my new goal in life is to find a better way of starting these videos. So if you have any suggestions, if you have other classes that are just totally amazing introductions, please let me know. I would be very curious to hear. But welcome, students. My name is Courtney Murray. I am the teacher of this course, and I admire that you're here. I know that there wasn't a lot of information about this course when you enrolled, so I imagine for some of us, this is going to be a very exciting um, informational session about what this class is. Um, so I hope you like it. If you have any concerns or questions, please let me know. Yeah, so I've already introduced myself. I've already said the name of the course. This is our introductory lecture. I would like to say this isn't going to be very long, but it probably will be longer than any of us would like. But what I want to do is just kind of give us a macro overview of the course, what it's about, what I was thinking when I put things together, what's going on with the Canvas page, kind of how it's going to lay out. Since this is an asynchronous course, there's just like a lot of kind of heavy lifting to do in the beginning. And then as things shake out, we will see kind of how it rolls along. This is a little bit of a smaller asynchronous course. I think right now we're capping enrollment at 50. That might go up, but that's kind of exciting. Usually the asynchronous courses I teach are very large, and I feel like with a class of this size, I was just like, well, maybe we can all get together for coffee, but maybe we can kind of build in ways to meet in real life. Or please know that if you ever want to come talk to me in person, um, I'm available, so I will talk about that. But anyhow, let's get into it. We're going to start off by talking about the syllabus, and then we will move to the Canvas page. And let me tell you again, this is going to be a lot of information. You don't need to know anything right now. Nothing is due officially for a long time. And I will make sure you have plenty of advance notice of what is due and when it is due and how to do it in advance. So don't worry, this is just meant to be like an overview, and we will do that. So the syllabus is available in many places on the Canvas page. I'm always happy to print you a copy and mail it to your home. So if you ever need anything, I could drop it off. That's fine. I like to drive. Just got two new tires. So that's exciting. So this course is called either God's Gladiators Empire. I think that's its new name. I think that changed 2 years ago. It used to be known as God's Gladiators and Amazons. And if you would ever, I think I actually talk about in the course description, next year it's going to have this crazy name. Actually, we'll talk about that. It is spring 2026. I am making this on January 18th, 17th. Martin Luther King Jr. Day weekend. So happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day to you. If you're watching this, I'm hoping to post it on Monday, if not sooner. Here is my information. I've already said my name at least once, my pronouns. Here's my email. I'm pretty good about email. I think. I don't want to toot my own horn on that. I don't know if young people know the phrase toot my own horn, but I tend to be okay about email, though there are times, especially let's say around weeks 5 and weeks 10, when everyone is taking exams, that I can miss an email or I just get a little bit behind. So I want you to know that you should never feel bad about following up on emails. If you send me something and you really need a response and I haven't answered in 24 hours, do not hesitate to reach out and be like, I need an answer on this. That never makes me feel bad. Yes, and as a mildly neurotic person myself, I know kind of what email paranoia feels like, so don't ever feel bad about double checking with me. I will, in spring of 2026, have office hours at my usual office hours time. So those of you who have had classes with me before, this is my general time, which is Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. My office is in Arts and Letters, which is this kind of newer building over by the small Starbucks. It's kind of like the northwest side of campus. It's a beautiful building. There's a lovely patio that you can sit on. My office is a nightmare. So you should come just to see that. There's no windows. It's very creepy, but it's fine. It's a good place to go. So you're more than welcome to come. But I will also be on campus on Tuesdays and Thursdays for most of the day. So if there is a time on a Tuesday you'd like to swing by, or if you'd like to come in earlier on Thursday, just reach out to me and we can absolutely find a time. I also would be thrilled to meet you via Zoom on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday when I'm not on campus, but I generally have possibility for Zoom office hours. So if you would like to do that, please don't hesitate. Very easy to set up and we can do that. Here is if you want to address me in public or one-on-one, you can be, it's fine, whatever you feel good about. So yeah, so here is the course overview, and here's kind of like my personal journey with this course. So let me just preface this by saying that I have been, believe it or not, I've been teaching for a very long time. I started teaching Greek and Latin language, which is like the easiest thing you can teach once you know Greek and Latin. But I have been adding on mythology courses and history courses and these big survey courses within the past, 7 to 10 years. So I do have some experience with this topic. But with this particular class, we in what are we called? Classics and Humanities, Humanities and Classical Studies. There was a big conversation about this course over the past couple of years. It had been called God's Gladiators and Amazons, but someone thought that might be problematic, and then it was changed to God's Gladiators and Empires. And then recently, last spring, we decided we were going to call it the Herbs and the Polis. But that's kind of a terrible name. The whole thing is this course is going to be about cities, the herbs, the polis, and those are just the ancient words for that. And so when I got the opportunity to teach this course, I decided that we were going to spend the entire course looking at basically four cities essentially. We are going to look at Mesopotamian urban centers, but specifically we'll be looking at Uruk and Ur and Babylon a little bit. But then we're going to move on to Athens because that's my specialty and I love it. We will look at Alexandria because I love Alexandrian literature and it's such an amazing city. And I think we living in our current moment can really kind of understand Alexandria in a unique way because we are living in a world with cities that are very similar to Alexandria. And then finally, we're going to look at Rome. And I feel a little bit nervous about this only because Rome is a huge, huge topic, and many of us know about Rome. And it's going to come at the end of the semester, and we don't actually have the full amount of time to work on it. So it's going to be a real quick introduction to Rome. But the thing is like all of these cities, every single one could fill an entire course, right? Like we could spend 15 weeks talking about Mesopotamian cities. But the life is short. And so so when we look at these cities, we're going to be picking out kind of the macro picture, the big ideas, and just arbitrarily the things that I think you will find most interesting because I found them most interesting. And we will get into that as we get into each module. But I do want to say this is not an urban planning course. This is not a poli-sci course. This is not a history course. This is a classics course. So we're basically just going to be looking at all of those things, history, urban planning, political science. But for me, the real focus is always going to be on kind of the more humanities aspects of each of these cities, which is to say, how do these cities perceive of themselves? How do they depict themselves? Why do we think of them in the way that we do based off of the evidence that we have? So it's more I hesitate to say the word vibe because I feel like I'm way too old to be talking about vibes. I don't want to co-opt the language of the youth, but it is kind of more of a just the humanities elements of each of these cities, more or less. So we will be focusing on different areas in different cities, but for each of the cities, we will be looking specifically at the literature of the cities to see how they portrayed themselves. And hopefully, what I'm saying, what that means, will become more clear as you go. through each of the modules. And that being said, if there is an element of the city that you feel is not being discussed and you would like to discuss, this is a very flexible course. Like it is very easy for me to incorporate, a deep dive into something that's of interest to you. So in particular, like I'm thinking of Rome. At the moment, I don't think there is any sort of military history of Rome, though there might be, but if you are a military history buff and you're like, can we please discuss how the shift of the army from a citizen army to a mercenary army, how that affected the city? Let's talk about that. We can find something to read and we can discuss it because that of course, if it's of interest to you, I think it would be of interest to many people. So let's talk about that. That being said, I will, of course, anyhow, we'll talk about the readings and everything. But the point is, as you can see from this course overview, we're going to be looking at these cities. We are going to be looking at them from various different angles. And ultimately, we will be comparing and contrasting. And then at the end of the course or throughout the course, really, we are going to create an ideal city. And so this is something I am really excited about. I hope not in like a weird geeky way, but what I was thinking with this, over the past few years, I have witnessed from the outside because I am not like a gamer in any way. I think the last game I ever played was Mario Kart in 1999. But I have seen young people, my nephew, my students, create cities and games like Roblox, or I think that's how it's pronounced, Minecraft. Is that a thing? Sims was kind of a big deal. Just quick, this is Audrey. She is one of the course TAs. She'll be around. Yeah, so I've seen people creating cities and I thought maybe we could incorporate that, like, right. So if that is something of interest to you, if you are like a city builder in some way, you can use any platform to create a city. But if you are more like me and haven't played a game since before you were born, you can also create a city on paper, right? Like you can write an essay, you can write a story, you can write a speech describing your city. If you are into architecture, you can create blueprints for a city. What we're going to be doing in this course is creating an ideal city, but the kind of the material and the medium by which that city is created is entirely up to you. And that's something we're going to be talking about throughout the 15 weeks. And I think it'll be great. And you will be fully supported and we will talk about it and it will be fantastic. But the idea is that you will take inspiration from the elements of the cities that we have been focusing on and use that to create an ideal city. So yeah, so that's essentially where we will be going. But yes, practically speaking, the course will have a lot of textbook readings. Crud. I have the textbook, like I had it in my hand. Actually, I've learned this new thing. Hang on just one second. Hang on. Okay, so here is the book. This is the textbook for the course. It is beautiful. I love it. It is very long. There are many, many pictures that are not in color, which is too bad. This is the only book I will ask you to purchase. I think it's a good investment. We will not be reading this entire book, but we will be reading significant portions of it. And if you're at all interested in the ancient world, it's an excellent resource to have. And I will have alternative readings or suggested readings for different areas. So that's our course textbook. But for each module, I will also have some primary sources. And the great thing about taking a class about the ancient world is all of those primary sources are available because they've never been in copyright or they're very old. I will try to find good translations, but for anything outside of the text, I will provide it via PDF or something along those lines through Canvas. So there is a normal amount of reading for every single module. There will be recorded lectures. They will hopefully not be this wordy for each module. I think for module one, there's like 3 lecture series or maybe 4 lecture series divided into, you'll see it, but it shouldn't be too onerous. Like my goal was maybe 2 hours of lecture a week to kind of just mimic what it would be if we were meeting in person. There will be quizzes. Every module will have a reading quiz. The quizzes you can take as much as you want, and we can talk about that as when we look at the modules. There will be two discussions, everyone's favorite, especially my own, and then two cumulative exams, and we'll talk about that when we look at the Canvas page. And then there's the final project. So we'll look at the breakdown in just a second. So here's ultimately what hopefully we will be doing in this course. We will be learning about the Mesopotamian cities, Athens, Alexandria, and Rome. We will be going through those cities in chronological order. So we will focus first on the Mesopotamian cities, which rose in, I don't know, let's say 2000 BCE, then the Golden Age of Athens in the 5th century BCE. Alexandria was a potent city around 300 to 200 BCE, and then Rome, of course, um, was where, Julius Caesar, Jesus, like we're going to be focusing around that time period. So we will also look at the myriad ways of defining a city, at how a city is many things, and how you choose to define it or where you choose to look, you get different answers to what it is. And so we will kind of be wrestling with those issues a little bit. We will look at the literary texts that each city produced and what those texts tell us about the city. Well, at the same time, and this is me, this is just me overthinking things, acknowledging the inherently arbitrary nature of any definition of a city. And I will say this multiple times, this may be the first time. Um, we are looking at the city through parameters that I have chosen, and I am not an omniscient human being. Believe it or not, I know it's shocking after this very wordy lecture, but I have chosen to look at certain elements of the city simply because I think that they're interesting. They may be relevant to you as a young person learning today. There are many different things we could be focusing on that we will not be focusing on. And that's just the nature of learning sometimes, right? So. And then finally, we will feel empowered to imagine an ideal city that incorporates the lessons provided by our less than ideal ancient cities. And I will be talking about this quite a bit. I am mildly anxious about some of the more negative aspects of the cities that we're going to be looking at. I don't like discussing those in a vacuum because it feels to me, it's a very lonely, isolating thing to just be talking about slavery and exploitation all by myself looking at a computer. I would much rather be having that conversation with you, and I would love to have that conversation with you in person if you ever want to talk about this, or maybe it could be something we bring up in discussions. Yes. So we'll get there. Okay, here's your essential student information. This is all kind of SDSU boilerplate. If you have any concerns about things specifically, please let me know, and I will either try to answer your question or point you in the right direction. This one, attempting to fulfill the requirements of this course using solely a cell phone is strongly discouraged. This is mainly for the purpose of exams. You are more than welcome. In fact, I encourage you to watch any video in which my face is involved. Watch it on the smallest possible screen. Like this does not need to be on a big screen. But in taking the exams, I know that you as young people are much more advanced than I am. But in terms of like writing stuff out, I think it would be much more difficult on a cell phone than it would be on a laptop or a desktop or some other, larger machine. And if you would like to avail yourself of a larger machine that you do not own, hopefully this link works. I will double check to make sure the links work. And yes. And of course, and I know you all know this because you are smart SDSU students who have been living in the learning online world for a long time, but please do be mindful of online etiquette, being polite, being respectful of your fellow learners, and just being a decent person online. So, yes, and so this is all basically just stuff. This is, of course, an asynchronous class, and this because this is the first time I've taught this class, as I always am with these sorts of things, I'm mildly nervous about people keeping up. This course, as it is designed right now, does not have a ton of check-ins. There will not be a weekly check-in. So as a result, I have tried to stagger the dates of things so that there will be a regular opportunity for you to turn something in, to just stay accountable so you don't fall too far behind if you do fall behind. But there's a lot of flexibility and there's a lot of opportunity to kind of forget that this class even exists. So if that happens to you, please know that I'm here to support you in any way that I can. If you do fall behind, please come talk to me and let's figure out a way of catching up. I will be emailing you at least once a week, hopefully not more than once a week, to tell you where I think you should be. There are many places where I'm going to remind you of where I think you should be. If you are not there, that's the thing for us to talk about. So hopefully that will be fine. And then email. Yes. So this is the time where I get to tell you, please check your email. I say this as someone who opened up her SDSU email for the first time in a week this morning, and I saw that there was something I should have paid attention to 2 days ago, and I feel very bad about that. But it was winter break. The only way I can communicate with you is via email. So if you're not checking your SDSU email, I'd be screaming into a void, and nobody likes that. This is particularly important when it comes to exam times. Almost virtually every exam, I will have one or two students where something goes wrong through no fault of their own. Something gets skipped, something doesn't copyright, something doesn't come over. And I have to reach out to that student and say, I need you to do this to pass the exam. If you never see that email or if it gets buried, then I can't give you the exam score that I want you to have. So please do keep an eye on that. So I know that we live in a world where there's too many emails. I'm completely sympathetic, but yeah. So, and then Canvas is, of course, where this class is taking place. You're surely watching this video via Canvas. If you need Canvas support, here's a link for you. Okay, so course materials. Didn't I just stop the lecture so I could show you the book? Did I show you the book? So I get so caught up in these. Anyhow, in case I didn't do it. Yes, I did. Here is the book. You can get it through day one. It's and that it's actually that's a very good way of doing it. That's what I use. It's completely fine. There's not going to be a need to go back and forth with a course glossary. So if you want to use the online text, completely very encouraged. But like I said, the physical text is beautiful. I might try to put my copy on reserves at the library. I don't think I can because I need it, but I need it to create the future modules. But there are copies of earlier editions available at the library, and I will put those on reserve. So if you want to read an earlier edition, which I'm sure is exactly the same, and you want to read it in physical format, I will make sure it's available to you at the library. Yes, yeah, I will do that. And then anything else will be provided to you via Canvas. So I think I've basically already talked about the course design. We're going to look at this more clearly when we look at the Canvas page. So this is here, but let's kind of shake it out when we get to the Canvas page. This whole paragraph right here is about late exams. So there are two exams for this course. One will be around week 9, week 10, and one will be at the end of maybe the first exam is like around week 8, and the second exam is at the end of the semester. Um, they will open, these are, long-term exams. You'll have like 5 or 6 days to take them, but they will be due at 11:59 on a Sunday or something like this. So just be aware of that. This is normally not that big of a deal. Students are generally just fine. Um, but it's good to say it, right? That please turn your tests in on time. You will have plenty of notice. And I guess, yeah, the other thing I do want to say too is like I am not a monster. Last semester was when we had that big breakdown of Canvas when Canvas crashed, and it like crashed at like 10 p.m. on a Sunday night. And I know that many students really panicked about that because they thought Canvas is down. I can't turn in an assignment. Will I get penalized for that? Which I thought was insane. If Canvas is down and you can't turn in an assignment, we will make other we will make other arrangements. So let's say you wanted to turn your exam in at 11:30 p.m. Canvas is down. Go to sleep. Get some rest. If Canvas was down, let's just say at the very least there'd be a 24-hour grace period. So please don't ever feel like you need to worry about that sort of thing for this class. Yes. So if you are a math person, here's some math numbers for you. The two cumulative exams, which we will talk about when we look at the Canvas page, are worth 40% of your grade. So each one will be worth 20% of your grade. The quizzes, you'll have one per module. In total, the quizzes will be 25%. So each one is about, 6 to 7%. Usually what I do is I have three at 6 and one at 7. Does that make sense? Something like that. Yeah. The Ideal City project will be 25%, but that will be broken down. So the proposal for the Ideal City will be 5%, the draft will be 5%, and then the final project will be 15%. So plenty of opportunity to get your points there. And then the two discussions will be worth 10%. Yeah, so that's how it breaks down. Here is the grading scale, which is very standard, I think, for SDSU. And now here is the schedule. I'm not sure how often students use these proposed schedules that are on a course syllabus, but basically the way I imagine it is each module should take about 4 weeks. And in fact, yeah. So let's talk about that. So here we are. We're in week one. There is an introduction module. I mean, it feels right now like this, watching this video will take an entire week. So the first week is kind of look at the syllabus, watch this video, take the sample exam, which we will look at. This should all be done by the first week of class, so January 27th. The first module is meant to stretch from January 20th to February 12th. So that's 4 weeks. In that time, you will read the text, you will watch the videos, which correspond to the text. You will take the quiz about halfway through, and then you will do the discussion. Then in week 5, we'll move on to module 2, where you will have the same essential structure with readings, video lectures, and a quiz, which will be posted halfway through the module. But then at the end of module 2 will be the first exam. So, and that pattern will be repeated with modules 3 and 4. We will look at this when we look at the Canvas page, but yeah, that's basically the idea. So two modules, exam, two modules, exam, with each module taking about 4 weeks. So, yeah. And these proposed dates are meant to help you. And notice too that sporadically, really every 5 weeks, I will ask for part of your Ideal City project. So at week 5, I will ask you for the proposal. At week 10, I will ask you for the outline. And at week 15, 16, it will be due. There will be plenty of advance warning, but that's just kind of the overarching timing of the course. And then university policies are all here. Don't have to worry too much about these. It's academic honesty. I do want to call your attention to this. I do these days really try to structure a course that makes cheating completely unnecessary. I know we are living in a time in which there's so many competing ideas about the ethical use of AI. I I have lots of thoughts about this, but nothing firm. So I will try to be clear about what I expect, what I hope for, but what I don't want to do is create an environment in which you feel like I am at odds with you. I trust you. I know you are all great students who are taking this course because you're interested in the material in one way or the other. And I just want us to learn together. So whatever we have to do to get there, we will. And if you ever want to just talk, yeah, one of the things I actually am super, super curious about is how students are using AI. Like, how is it helping you? How are you feeling weird about it? Or what can I do to make to make the whole process more meaningful to you so you don't feel like, oh, let me just have ChatGPT do it. Or if you are using ChatGPT in a way that's helpful, let's talk about that because I would be really curious to know. So my whole thing is we don't have to worry too much about this. Um, yeah, but this is all here for you. And then, yes, so that is the end of the syllabus. So let us close that. And now let us look at the Canvas page. So actually, let me look at the student view. So we all are looking at the same thing. Here is our homepage. You really never have to hang out here, but I wanted to show it to you. This is actually ancient Mesopotamian, Akkadian. So that all just says welcome. Kairata is Greek, Salweta is Latin. So the languages of the cities that we're going to be looking at. If you hit the start here, it's just going to take you to the introductory module. Here is another way of finding the syllabus. And as I note here, this homepage is fine. I made it. I obviously love it. But most of the course material is going to be in the modules section. That's really where you're going to be living. What I wanted to put here, though, are two ways of kind of tracking where I think you should be. So weeks 1 through 4, you should be in module 1. I will update this as we go on. And then I will each week, hopefully, post what I think you should be doing that week. Ideally, what you should be up to that week. So week 1, where we are this week, this really is syllabus week, as I've mentioned. So that might be a good way of using the homepage. If you're just like, I don't even know what week it is, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, this homepage is here for you. So there you go. The syllabus, of course, you guys know this. This will have all of your upcoming assignments, so that could be useful. There's also another copy of the course syllabus here. But mainly here is where we're going to be living, is in the modules. So day 1 ready, this is where our book should be. If you have trouble accessing the book, please let me know. Please let me know as soon as possible because I know sometimes that comes a bit late. And here's our introductory module with the course overview. So this is basically just a rehash of the syllabus, but it's probably worth reading again, you know. Here is, in case you're like, I need to know more about this lady, here is some information about the cities that I grew up in. This is also my cat, Jo. She is not the one who was here before. She's amazing. She's in another lecture. They both pop up here and there. And at some point, I should have some foster kittens, but not for a couple of months. So you might never see them. Anyhow, once again, syllabus. There's a lot of places to find the syllabus. This page will tell you about the exams and quizzes. So if you are nervous about this now, which you shouldn't be, there you will have so much information. You will be very prepared. But this talks about what the exams and quizzes are. But the short version of this is that quizzes are meant to help you keep up with the reading. So all of the quizzes will be focused on the reading and the lectures, because the lectures basically just cover the reading. The quizzes will be multiple choice. I reserve the right to include a fill in the blank here or there, but they're mostly multiple choice. I think they're going to, I haven't actually made a quiz yet, but I think it'll probably be 20 questions. And you will have, like a minute per question, 20 questions, 20 minutes, something like this. I will give you advance notice. You will know, but it should be totally reasonable. And the thing it says the woman making it, but I think it's going to be fine. The quiz is also, you can take as many times as you want. The I was thinking about this, like the quizzes are a way of me signaling to you what I think is worth looking at in the reading. So let's say you did all the reading and then you take the quiz and you're like, what the hell? I don't know any of this. Now you know how my brain is. Some of you may be super fortunate and we think exactly the same way, but that's rarely the case. So the quizzes you can take as many times as you want to kind of focus on the things that I considered important from the reading, um, and your highest score will be kept. Quizzes also are meant to help you prepare for the exams. Because you can take them as many times as you want, you can use it to prepare for the exam, and some of the quiz questions will show up on the exams. So I will have more information out about this when I post the first quiz, which will be next week. But that's kind of what we need to know for now. And then the exams, which happen every 8 weeks, we'll incorporate some of those multiple choice questions from from the quiz. Okay, sorry, my brain just broke. Yes, we will have quizzes for every module. Yes. So the exams will have questions from the quizzes, but they will also have some kind of passage identification questions and a couple of like essay questions asking you to compare and contrast. That is why the exams come after 2 modules, because they will definitely be asking you, how did Athens do this differently from Mesopotamian cities? How did Rome do this different from Alexandria? I like the idea of compare and contrast just because it's a nice way of organizing information. So, the exams you will only be able to take one time, but you will have a generous amount of time to do it. It's obviously open book, open note, and yeah, yeah. So, and the first exam is in 8 weeks, so let's talk about it when we get a little bit closer to that. So, there you go. Hopefully, that is not too terrifying. Yes. If you would like to test out the exam situation, the sort of questions I ask, how I do it, you can take the syllabus quiz. If you take the syllabus quiz, you do get extra credit. So you get 5 points of extra credit if you take this syllabus quiz. It is very straightforward. It's also just a good way of knowing, of reminding yourself what this course asks for. I used to say, please take the syllabus quiz so I know that you're engaged in the course. But I no longer do that because it wasn't a useful way of doing things. So if you would like to do it, fine. But if not, that's totally fine too. Okay, and so then once you finish that, we will move on to module one. So module one is shaped, like all of the modules will be shaped like this. So every module will start off with a module overview, which will explain to you, this is a cattail, which will explain to you what we're focusing on and why we're focusing on it. So our very first module is on the urban centers, specifically Uruk and Babylon of Mesopotamia. Um, and in this first module, not only are we going to be learning about Mesopotamian cities, but I have a separate lecture about these four pillars of city identity, which we will be focusing on in each module. So the lecture explains what I mean by foundations, government, social order, religion, sacred landscape, and art. So, yeah, so there's a separate lecture for that, but mainly that's just kind of an FYI situation. And then, yeah, so that's and in this first module, we're not only learning about Mesopotamian cities, but we are reading the Epic of Gilgamesh, which, sorry, I just blanked again. I've been probably lecturing for too long. Um, I'm just trying to think. Should we? No, no, no. Yeah. So anyhow, module overview will be in every module. And then we will have a section that outlines the readings for the course. So in this first module, and this is why my brain glitched a little bit, we will have three different readings. The first reading is a PDF. It's a very old PDF, it's very short, and explains to you what exists before cities and how we talk about how people organize themselves before urban centers. So I think that was a really interesting reading, and I included it, and I hope you read it. It is required. It will be asked about. Then we will have some textbook reading. Right now it's just chapter two from our book. I think it's, 20 pages, so not too bad. But then the majority of the reading for this particular module is the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now, as I say in my lectures, I hope I say it multiple times, but you can read any copy of Gilgamesh that you would like. I know that some of you have taken Intro to Myth, and so you have the Epic of Gilgamesh in the textbook for that course, and that is a perfectly good version to use. As I say, any copy of the Epic is completely acceptable, but there is this free one available through the library. And this is the one that I am using because I know you can access it for free. I felt like it's okay for me to use it. So, yes, I think it's very good. And though this looks kind of intimidating, like I'm asking you to read a whole book, I'm only asking you to read the actual poem, which is rather sh relatively short. It's not too long. So if it takes you a week, if it takes you 2 weeks, that's okay because that's how long the module is, right? So that is the readings for this module. And so for every module, there will be distinct readings. So for Athens, I will give you more sections from the textbook because our textbook talks about Athens more. But then I will also give you some PDFs of a tragedy and a comedy and a speech. So they will all be available to you here. So that will happen in every module, and then there will be these video lectures. These are meant to correspond to each reading. So as you can see here, this first lecture series, which is 2 lectures, corresponds to the PDF by child. And then lecture slides are here if you would like to follow along while you're watching the video. Lecture two is this four pillars thing, so that's kind of theoretical. It doesn't correspond to a reading. Lecture three is corresponding to the textbook reading. So there's three parts to that lecture, and then there's the lecture slides. And then lecture four is about the Epic of Gilgamesh. There are three parts to that lecture, and there are lecture slides. Notice there's not lecture slides for each part. The lecture slides cover all of that, each part. So what I did is I used one PowerPoint and then I just stopped it at seemingly arbitrary times. So give it a shot, see how it goes. Sorry for the camera. It's just because of the cat. Um, let's see if she can move. There we go. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it's a lot of information. And most importantly, as far as I'm concerned, if some of these links don't work, please do let me know. Each of the lectures is essentially a YouTube video. I actually don't know if you can see this. Hopefully you can. Um, so if a link isn't working or something is going wrong, I have this like mild awareness that there might be ads. So please let me know if there's a problem, basically. All right, so to go back to the module. So that's the course material, right? So you have your reading and you have your video lectures. Then every module will include some assessment or engagement situations. So because this is module one, there will be the quiz. Every module will have a quiz, and I will let you know when I'm going to post it, and then you will have a specific amount of time to take it, plenty of time. And because this is the first module, it will not end with an exam, but rather a discussion post, which I will post on February 3rd. And so these are kind of arbitrary dates. It's mainly just so you have regular check-in times. So if you need early access to something because you're going out of town or whatnot, please let me know and we can make that happen. It's absolutely no problem. But also, you don't have to do either of these things as soon as I post them. Like this quiz will not be due until the end of module two. This discussion will not be due until the end of module two. So there will be plenty of time to do things. I just am posting them on a weekly basis so you remember that the class exists. And then finally, for each module, there will be additional resources. And this is completely 100% optional. You never have to look at the additional resources. They are in no way going to be measured in this class. It's just that there's so much interesting material about all of these things. I may reference some of these additional resources in my lectures. So if you're at all curious, I am obsessed with podcasts. So they will mainly be podcasts, but every once in a while there's some good YouTube sites and there's always like some weird crazy internet stuff. So I will post that in additional resources. And if you have something that you're like, this would be so fascinating for the class, or this is something I enjoy and I think the class would be interested, please let me know and I will post it. I will post it under additional resources. So and so this module should take 4 weeks. At the end of week four, I will post module two, which will look exactly the same, except for all of the information will be about Athens. So it will, of course, be the best. And then, but here too, right now, there is also the Build Your Own City module. So let me show you the project overview. Please look at this like as soon as you can, not because there's any work to be done right now, but because I want you to be thinking about this as soon as possible. So the ideal city is going to be something that you invent. And I don't have an example now, but I will. I was trying to think like what I would create. And I thought I would create a city in which cats and people lived harmoniously and shared in government. Like that was one. But then recently I've been watching this show. I'm not going to give you the name of the show because it's embarrassing. But I thought, what if there was a city in which hockey players could live the lives they wanted? That would be a whole ideal city. So any idea like that, just like a city that you would like to live in. So that's the first part of this project. Then as we go through the course, you can kind of see the elements that go into defining a city. And you can start to think, okay, well, if I lived in a city where cats and people lived harmoniously and governed together, what would that government look like? What would the foundations of that city have been? How would it have come together? And then what would the government look like? And would there be like a sacred place where cats and people could come together? And what kind of literature? So that's where we want to be in these first 5 weeks. And your very first project will be a proposal. Like I am going to create a city in which cats and people live together equally. That's part one. Then you will create a draft and we'll talk about that. And then there will be the final project and we will talk about that. I will give you plenty of time before each assignment is due, and I will give you plenty of examples. So, as I put here at the end, detailed instructions for each stage will be posted, and you will not be expected to do any part of this project without guidance. But I want you to start thinking about it now because some of us are like very creative, right? Like, oh, I've got it. I've been thinking about this my entire life. But some of us freeze under pressure. Like, this would be me if I were in your shoes. I'm like, there's no way I can think of this. But if you kind of let it percolate in your mind a little bit, um, hopefully it'll be great. Hopefully something will come up. The one thing I will emphasize now, and again, this is an ideal city. We're going to be looking at real cities in which people often acted terribly, and there was oppression and violence and slavery and just a lot of gross stuff because that's how human history is. We are not going to incorporate any of that into our ideal city. Um, we're just not. So, just FYI, if you're like, I can't build my city without slavery, then we need a different ideal city. But hopefully it'll be fun. It's meant to be like an enjoyable process. Okay, so I think that is all. Believe it or not, 2 days later, I think that we're good. Yes, so let me stop here. Please, if you're feeling overwhelmed, don't. Everything is going to be laid out for you. Everything is going to be fine. I myself have been a little bit overwhelmed. I'm always overwhelmed at the beginning of asynchronous courses because it just feels like there's so much to do. Please know that this week, week one, just get familiar with the Canvas page. Look at what you're supposed to be doing for Module 1. Make sure you know where to find the readings. Make sure you know how to watch the videos. Make sure you know how to reach me if you want to reach me. Um, that's really all we need to do this week. And then next week, we will have more specific instructions. So, but again, thank you. I'm really excited to do this course. I'm really hoping and looking forward to seeing some of you one way or the other. So thank you. My cats, I'm sure, would say thank you as well. And I look forward to seeing you soon. I'm going to stop recording. I'm always very good about this.